Most of us have people in our life that are close to us because of circumstances. Perhaps it's a best friend or someone we went through foster care with, or someone who always has your back when times are rough. It might be a college roommate or someone who held you up when you were betrayed or in the depths of sorrow. In today's society, these people are often referred to as found family. The 12 disciples were the found family of Jesus. So think about that for a moment. We know that Jesus had brothers and sisters, and yet he didn't travel with them. He hung out with a band of poor men and traveled around Galilee to the very edges of society as others, specifically women, funded most of his ministry, gave him food to eat, a place to stay. At face value, the story in today's gospel does not show Jesus in a flattering light. Jesus basically insults his mother and the rest of his family, and a family rift happens. I believe it was because Jesus was being fully human at that moment. If Jesus is being fully human, sometimes he will seem to be imperfect, or at least let the human side of his nature be more apparent than the godly side. One of the mysteries of Jesus is that we consider him to be fully human and fully God, all at the same time. This particular gospel tells us how difficult it is to be both. In this reading, Jesus is tired and frustrated at his family, and we should probably figure out why that was. This story really started last week with the gospel about the man with the withered hand. Jesus was not traveling with his family from Nazareth, but with the disciples. The crowd is testing, insulting Jesus, and calling him evil. Jesus responds with the idea that a house divided against itself cannot stand. After the confrontation, Jesus goes out and meets his family, and he's not very kind. Then again, his brothers didn't come in to stand up for him, nor did his mother, Mary. They stood on the outside and asked him to come out, hoping to get the eyes of those in the synagogue off of Jesus. Now, what's missing between last week's gospel and the reading we hear today is the rest of the story that is in Mark 3. Sandwiched between these two readings are a few verses that don't show up very often, where Jesus calls the disciples to himself, naming the 12. At least in the Gospel of Mark, this is not simply a story where Jesus says, "Follow me." He actively chooses the disciples. When Jesus comes and faces the crowd, his brothers may not have been with him, but Jesus was not alone. So you might be wondering, well, what does that matter? Why is that significant? Well, Jesus has already provided the answer. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Jesus doesn't want a group of people, even his kinfolk, to silence him. We don't know if this is maybe about jealousy or maybe a good faith argument. Maybe it's about public power. Regardless, Jesus had enough for now. This is where Jesus chooses his found family. The people who want to join in community with him and learn what he has to offer. Jesus chooses the people who show up over the brothers who are hanging back. Now, this family rift didn't last forever. Jesus' mother Mary was at the foot of the cross when he was crucified. And his brother James became the leader of the church in Jerusalem after the resurrection. So it was not a forever rift. Reconciliation happened. During this month of June, sometimes called Pride Month, we see family issues as well. Found family is not unknown among people rejected by others. This is a sad reality for many people who just want to live their lives in dignity and be celebrated for realizing who God made them to be. Jesus understands this better than many of us do. Jesus really does understand this better than many of us do. No one walks away from their family lightly. There's a backstory there, and it usually has some pain or some trauma that causes a relationship to become fractured. And it becomes the issue of dignity and of respect. In repair of relationships, that reconciliation, when possible, because sometimes it's not, but when possible, it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort. One of the places to find a found family should be in this place here. Trinity Episcopal Church, right here in Muscatine. Not saying that we'll always agree on everything, but that this is a place where people can come together and be loved. And we, who in our baptismal promises reference a need for dignity and a need for respect for all people, should be able to choose one another and find ways to celebrate each other. And that's what Jesus asks us when he chooses us as disciples and when we choose to be disciples of Jesus Christ. So as we go forward, may we look and celebrate one another in all of our varied ways that we are people. And may we find and be found by others in our life. Let us go and try to do that as much as we can. Amen.